So Rachel Maddow is pretty mad that Trump isn't being more hawkish on the issue of Venezuela. I mean, really, this is only exactly what I've been warning you about when it comes to Russiagate and the dynamic of people who are nominally on the left now resisting Trump from the right. That's a giant problem. They walked right into the trap because they're vapid and they don't care about actual policy. Watch this. This is disturbing.
He did, however, make clear today, after this phone call, that even though the whole rest of his own administration spent all week saying that Russia was interfering in Venezuela and propping up the Venezuelan dictator there, turns out President Trump now says Putin isn't doing that at all because Putin told him so. You see the headline in Bloomberg News today, Trump says Putin not involved in Venezuela despite U.S. claim. So Putin says he's not doing it. And so President Trump believes it. And so, hey, John Bolton, hey, Mike Pompeo, are you guys enjoying your jobs right now? You each thought your job this week was to name and shame and threaten and counter Russian government involvement in Venezuela while saber rattling about how everybody else better get out of the way because the U.S. is really mad about it. Guys, turns out your actual job is figuring out how and why you work for a president who says whatever Vladimir Putin tells him. I mean, just to be clear here, how do you come to work anymore if you're John Bolton? Right? Regardless of what you thought about John Bolton before this, of his whole career and his track record, just think of John Bolton as a human being. This is what John Bolton, human being, thought his job was this week. Like, again, whether you like what he's saying here or not, this is what they've had him out there saying.
The Trump administration has also made the claim that Russia is very much involved in propping up the Maduro regime. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told my colleague Wolf Blitzer yesterday that there was a plane waiting to take Maduro to Cuba, but the Russians talked him out of it. What exactly is the Russian role here?
Look, the Russians like nothing better than putting a thumb in our eye. They're using the Cubans as surrogates. They'd love to get effective control of a country in this hemisphere. We've made it clear to the Russians in a lot of conversations at a lot of different levels, some of which are going to continue today, why we think this behavior is unacceptable to us.
Yeah, you thought that was your job, but it turns out not at all. Not after Vladimir Putin gets done with President Trump today.
He is not looking at all to get involved in Venezuela other than he'd like to see something positive happen for Venezuela.
Putin doing anything in Venezuela? Who said Putin's doing anything bad in Venezuela? Who have you been listening to? I'm with him. He says he's not. I mean, John Bolton, God bless you. Good luck delicately and carefully shaving around that impressive mustache when you have to look at yourself in the mirror in coming days, Mr. National Security Advisor. I mean, this is who you're working for. You thought your job was to push Russia back because of what they're doing in Venezuela. The president spent an hour on the phone with Vladimir Putin today. Putin told him he's not in Venezuela. So now the new position of the U.S. government is that Putin's not in Venezuela.
So Rachel Maddow is discussing Venezuela. And she's nominally on the left. She thinks of herself on the left. And she doesn't even mention that all of our policies towards Venezuela right now are insanely hawkish. We are, sanctioning them out the wazoo and doing an embargo on them and applying maximum political pressure. Furthermore, we are literally backing a regime change coup that's happening in the country right now and trying to rally the world to do the exact same, to recognize Gallardo as president and oust Maduro quite literally. And instead of talking about what's actually happening in Venezuela, the facts on the ground, what the U.S. policy is towards Venezuela, she's harping away on a comment made by the president. Would you like to talk about how our policy contradicts his commentary? Would you like to talk about that? No, you don't want to because you don't care about the policy. You just want to play gotcha with Trump. So when Trump goes out there and says, I don't know, Putin's not involved in Venezuela, that's what he tells me. Let me ask you a question. What's Occam's razor here? The reason he's saying that is because he's a Manchurian candidate of Russia, even though he's doing the exact opposite of the policy that they want. Or is it most likely that he's a fucking idiot and he doesn't know anything and he's shooting from the hip And you're seeing him do the same thing he's done in meetings with everybody else. He had one meeting with big pharma lobbyists. On the campaign trail, he ripped big pharma and said, we're going to lower drug prices. It's going to be tremendous. It's going to be unbelievable. Believe me. One meeting with pharma lobbyists. And he goes, yeah, we think that the pharma companies have been treated very unfairly by Medicare and Medicaid. So what's more likely? What's more likely, Rachel? He's a Manchurian candidate who somehow manages to be doing the opposite policy of what they want, or he's just an idiot shooting from the hip, and he's, I don't know, but Putin told me he's not involved in Venezuela, so it's tremendous, he's not involved there, it's unbelievable. You know what the answer is. You know what's most likely. You know what Occam's razor is. And look at, see, this is what I mean, resisting from the right. Look at her framing of that conversation. What did she say? She's making it seem like, oh, poor John Bolton. Poor John Bolton and poor Mike Pompeo. They're the serious people in the room because they want to stand up to Russia and Venezuela. So, in other words, being more hawkish is good in Venezuela, is positive in Venezuela. That's the right thing to do. To stand up to Russia by trying to force regime change and get rid of Maduro, who's their ally. And she thinks she's on the left. And this is her argument. Like, what do you mean? Of course, we should be backing another regime change coup. Absolutely. What do you mean? And then, by the way, Trump is carrying out those policies that are massively hawkish, and basically her reaction is not hawkish enough. Because you make comments that indicate the opposite, so you're not hawkish enough. Do you see the problem here? The only way in Rachel Maddow's mind that Donald Trump can prove he's not a puppet of Vladimir Putin is to literally go bomb Maduro right this second and militarily invade. And then I guarantee you this, even if Donald Trump did that, and he might, we're this close to that, by the way, this close, and that's what we should be resisting. But even if Donald Trump did that, I guarantee you, Rachel Maddow would go out on her show and find a way to spin it as if, no, militarily invading Venezuela, trying to topple Maduro quite literally with the U.S. military, that's somehow doing Putin's bidding. How do I know? Because she's done this with every other issue. Whatever Trump does, it's spun as puppet of Vladimir Putin. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's spun as if, see, this proves he's a puppet of Vladimir Putin. Oh, he armed the Ukrainian rebels who are literally fighting Russia right this second? Something so hawkish, Obama was like, whoa, I can't do that. That's a major escalation. Trump did it, but still, Putin likes that. Pulling out of the fucking nuclear trade agreement? Yeah, Putin likes that, even though he literally doesn't. Pulling out of the Iran deal? Yeah, Putin likes that, even though he doesn't. Putting our warships in the Black Sea? Putin likes that, even though he doesn't. Doing a NATO buildup on Russia's border? Yeah, Putin likes that, even though he doesn't. Pressuring Germany's Angela Merkel to get out of an oil deal with Russia and have one with the U.S. instead, therefore massively damaging the Russian economy? Yeah, Putin likes that, even though he doesn't. So do you see the problem now? Rachel Maddow is acting like Mike Pompeo is, John Bolton is the adult in the room. The dude is an architect of the Iraq war. He's a fucking war criminal, quite literally. He's trying to do regime change now in Venezuela. And instead of Rachel Maddow opposing regime change, which is happening right in front of our fucking eyes, like a real lefty would be screaming, stay out of Venezuela, hands off Venezuela, what are you doing? That's got nothing to do with us. We're violating international law. We have no right to just go in there and topple that government. Are you fucking kidding me? You want to talk about election meddling? Instead of fighting against regime change, what's she doing? Arguing that John Bolton has it nailed because he's more hawkish against Russia than Trump's fucking rhetoric is, even though Trump's policies are the opposite of his rhetoric, acting like, yeah, I believe Putin, sure, he's not in Venezuela. Well, he's literally fighting them there right now and combating their influence by being more hawkish and by trying to get Gallardo in there. So I don't care what he says. Look at his policy and what he does. He's doing, in my opinion, the wrong thing. But then so let's say I was president now. Here's the gross twist on the end of it. Let's say I'm president and I decide, yeah, hands off Venezuela. We're going to lift the sanctions. We're going to get rid of the embargo. We're going to, it's just not our business. Venezuela's not our business. We're not going to violate international law and try to fucking do regime change. It's got nothing to do with us. If I were to do that, what would Rachel Maddow say? Puppet of Vladimir Putin. See? Kyle's a puppet of Vladimir Putin because he doesn't want to do more regime change war. Do you finally fucking see the problem with this, guys? Do you finally see the problem with Russiagate here and the hysteria and what it's brought about? The left should be focused on no more regime change war, but instead, Rachel Maddow is singing the praising of psychopathic, bloodthirsty, lunatic war criminal John Bolton and pretending he's the adult in the room because he's more hawkish on Venezuela than Donald Trump is. And in reality, he's not even more hawkish on Venezuela. It's just that Trump's rhetoric is all over the place because he's an idiot and he doesn't know anything. So as he's doing regime change, he's like, oh yeah, sure, Putin. Well, whatever. Yeah, he's got it. He's not involved there, I'm sure. So that, like, the people who are only focusing on that comment and ignoring the policy, they're either dishonest or they're really stupid. Because you talk about missing the forest through the trees. If you can't see the policies, the opposite of what Trump just said, and you can't see that that's the problem, that you should be resisting regime change on Venezuela. If you can't see that that's the problem, I don't know what to tell you. No, John Bolton is not like the adult in the room. He's the worst in the room. He's a fucking war criminal. He's trying to do more regime change, and you, Rachel Maddow, are supporting it because it's nominally anti-Russia to do another regime change coup.